Good afternoon, everyone. I am June Rawl, and I am really super excited to introduce today's webinar to you, an introduction to entrepreneurship and innovation. Today's webinar will be led by Alex Ramirez. Alex works for George T. Baker Aviation Technical College in Miami-Dade County Public Schools as a media specialist and an accreditation officer. He has over 8 years of experience as an adult educator in career and technical education and has earned a master's in business administration from the Chapman Graduate School of Business at Florida International University. His most recent research focuses on organizational development in business and schools. Today's webinar will focus on the implementation of critical entrepreneurial skills into the adult education classroom and the effects that teaching these skills have on the local community and economy. This webinar will also include application activities with which to engage students and encourage the development and use of these skills both inside the classroom and in real-world application. Before we get started, let me just go over a few little housekeeping rules. As you know, you are all in listen-only mode, but we do want to hear from you. So if you have a question, please type your question into the Q&A option that is on your screen. Today's presentation is recorded like all IPDAY webinars, and it will be archived and available on the IPDAY website within 48 hours. Today's also, you already told you, okay, all of the PowerPoint materials are already loaded on the IPDAY website, so you can grab them from there. So without further ado, Alex, I'm so excited to hear about this presentation. I can't wait to learn from you. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, June. Thank you for that awesome introduction. I'm really excited to be here with all of you this afternoon. And just before we get started, I do want to emphasize the importance of the Q&A. I will be reserving some time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. But as we go through the slides and we cover the information, if you do have any questions or anything that pops up that you think you can ask, you can go ahead and put the question in the Q&A. And at the end of the presentation, I'll go through those and answer as many as I can. Okay. And I do want to take a moment to thank you all for registering for this webinar and for your time this afternoon. Now, before we get started, this is the part 1 of 2 for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation series. And what we're going to do today is kind of discuss the incredibly relative value of entrepreneurship and integrating this stuff into our classrooms, these skills. Part 2 of the webinar is going to be an application guide in which we take all of the information that I'm going to share with you today and take it and build some activities for your classrooms so that you can hone those skills. And I just want to take a small moment here to take a note for source materials. For this webinar, there were 3 major books that I used for research, as well as a couple of wonderful articles, and the attached materials for the webinar have all those references listed on the reference page. So before we get started, I really want to cover the objectives of today's webinar. We have 2 objectives for today's training. The first objective is to establish and define the entrepreneurial skills which are needed to succeed in today's rapidly changing economy. The second goal is to explain the role of entrepreneurs in our local economies and the impact that they have on community development. In order to achieve these goals, I'm going to start by defining and explaining entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as outlining the critical skills that are needed to succeed, whether your students want to start their own business, work in a trade, or collaborate in a corporation. After we establish this foundation, I'll explain how teachers can leverage the value of human capital investment and its pivotal role in developing underserved communities by equipping students with the necessary skills to develop and start their own local businesses. The economy is rapidly changing from the late model of the 20th century to an entirely new 21st century model. Some business experts like Daniel Pink have called this new motivation business model the 3.0 model and refer to the 20th century model as the 2.0 model. This radical shift in how we purchase goods and services and how companies choose to grow and manage their organization has created the demand for an entirely new set of skills. In his hallmark analysis of education in America, called the Global Achievement Gap, Tony Wagner calls these skills survival skills. And these skills are the bedrock for entrepreneurship. They are the necessary skills which help frame a mindset, and they are the skills that many employers are demanding for all industries and professions. As the world becomes increasingly connected and industries become ever more competitive, companies are investing in future talent, which can help disrupt their industries with remarkable and creative new ideas for both services and products. And they want this all while changing the organizational structure and growth of the work environment to promote more creativity and drive among their workers. With the birth and expansion of the internet, the need to memorize data has become increasingly less relevant. In the 20th century, memorizing was a critical skill. Without smartphones and instantaneous access to the internet, the ability to recall complex information was key in succeeding in any industry. However, this has changed drastically since the turn of the century. The introduction of tablets, smartphones, mobile computers have provided us with almost instant access to the global collective memory. This dramatic shift proposes a question. And that question is, what does this mean for our businesses? What does this mean for our classrooms and our students? It essentially means that the need for memorizing and recalling information has been replaced with the need to analyze and decipher it. In other words, the skills needed to succeed have changed. Accessing and deciphering the wealth of information available to us is much more important than trying to memorize it all. But it's not always about data. Today's technology allows us to communicate much more easily than ever before. Within seconds, a student from South Florida can FaceTime a friend living in India or a relative in Moscow. The ability to instantly communicate with others has brought on the need for our students to effectively use these tools to collaborate. Never has written and oral communication been so important. We send dozens of emails and phone calls every day, and the ability to collaborate hinges on our facility with communicating complex ideas and solutions. Now, one might ask, what do these skills mean for new and existing businesses? Well, with changing business models, it means that new business owners must leverage these skills to gain a competitive entry into established markets, while existing business leaders must pivot to the new model in order to stay relevant. To do this, all business leaders, whether they're starting their own plumbing company or leading a Silicon Valley Fortune 500, must implement new marketing and organizational development models. This means engaging customers in new and innovative ways, using social media, web applications, and interactive advertisement, all while building a workplace culture that promotes creativity, innovation, and adaptability, while motivating employees to work and do their best. Now, at first, this may seem very overwhelming, but many of the world's most innovative and successful companies, such as Google, Microsoft, Starbucks, and Uber, have been using these strategies for some time now. Teaching students to become successful entrepreneurs means equipping them with these skills so that they can take on existing markets and challenge the industry giants with their new ideas. Now, before we get started, I want to take a moment to define entrepreneurship and its importance. Entrepreneurship is best defined as a continuous quest for real-world problem solving. While it is summarized as a mindset, it encompasses a wide set of skills which can be learned. Entrepreneurship, contrary to popular belief, is not limited to business owners and managers. In today's evolving economy, more businesses are listing entrepreneurial skills under requirements for both corporate and trade jobs. So what's the reason? Well, leaders, administrators, and managers have begun to see the increasing value of these sets of skills. These skills do not only apply to self-starters or corporate managers, they benefit all employees from all industries and in all capacities. The reason is the mindset or framework in which these entrepreneurs view and solve problems. Entrepreneurs leverage their experience and these key skills to tackle problems from an entirely different angle. This ability to use conventional knowledge and apply creativity has helped to birth some of the most innovative products and services today. During the presentation, I will refer to two cases of extremely successful, innovative companies. In both cases, the services created revolutionized the entire industry, and within a short time span, both companies are among the most valuable in their respective industries. The companies I'm referring to are Uber and Airbnb. These startups revolutionized the taxi and hotel industries by implementing radically different business models, which leveraged platform economics to take advantage of the market, an absolutely incredible innovation. Within a few years, Airbnb was the largest hospitality and stay provider in the world, despite owning no hotels. And Uber provided more rides than any other taxi or shuttle service globally, despite not owning any actual vehicles. The reason that these companies were able to become so wildly and spectacularly successful is because the founders created a culture for the organization that promoted entrepreneurship and innovation. For our students to succeed in today's economy, we must teach them how to think like entrepreneurs. And we can do this by teaching them the essential skills that will make them the leaders and workers of tomorrow. I want to take a moment to look at these really important statistics. 95% of startups fall short of meeting projections within the first year. 80% fail to see projected return on investment, and 40% liquidate almost all their investment. An astounding 88% of college students report entrepreneurship as a critical skill. An analysis of new jobs indicates that as much as 75% of new jobs are created each year by entrepreneurs. And 54% report planning on starting their own business within a year. If the data is indicative of anything, it is that entrepreneurship is not only growing, but has a critical place amongst millennials, many of whom are entering the workforce both in entry-level and leadership roles. Before our students accept the challenge of beginning their own business, it is important that they are familiar with the risks that come with that venture. Additionally, it is imperative that we teach them the necessary skills to properly decrease the number of new businesses that fail to succeed. It's reported that up to 99% of the reason for new business failure is a lack of experience and planning. And planning is a result of applying entrepreneurial skills. Now that we've established the need for these entrepreneurial skills, let's take a moment to dissect exactly which are the skills that we should be implementing. These are the skills that we should be integrating into our curriculum, into our classroom assignments. And what are the skills needed exactly? Entrepreneurial skills are a set of soft skills, which form the bedrock for leadership potential, innovation, and business development. Entrepreneurs are not only business leaders and self-starters, they are inventors, collaborators, and organizers, and are comfortable both leading and following. The entrepreneurial mindset views obstacles as challenges and challenges as opportunities to experiment and innovate. The most in-demand entrepreneurial skills are critical thinking, problem solving, communication and collaboration, adaptability, oral and written communication, information analysis, and creativity. My experience with industry advisory committees confirms this. In career and technical education, many times in order to maintain accreditation of a program, industry advisory committees are formed in which industry members and industry managers, people with hiring power in companies, have direct input into how a school can move and adjust its strategies for growing a career and technical education program. In my discussions with these industry leaders, they almost always talk about the importance of these skills, specifically critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. These skills are critical for new business owners to succeed in today's competitive climate as well. To prepare our students to succeed in this fluid economy, we must ensure that we are equipping them with this skill set in order to meet the challenges, innovate, and build a workplace climate and culture which promote efficacy and productivity. Now that we've covered entrepreneurship, I want to take a moment to introduce innovation. Innovation is entrepreneurship in action. It means creating meaningful points of difference for products and services versus current alternatives. This can often lead to disrupting an industry or creating an entirely new space to market within. Innovation is created through fulfilling unmet consumer needs by offering new ways to accomplish goals or make lives or jobs easier, better, happier, more exciting, or productive. To help define innovation, I'm going to refer to the cases mentioned earlier, Airbnb and Uber. These two companies have one thing in common. They innovated by taking advantage of platform economics. Both companies leveraged software to overcome the need to maintain a costly list of assets. By doing this, they were able to compete with companies globally and pose a significant threat to the industries they challenged. Platforms increasingly define how 21st century companies can leverage the internet to increase the scope, quality, and access to their products and services. Traditional platforms began as a place to exchange the new currency of the internet, data. Platforms allow you to stream music such as Spotify or movies like Netflix and Disney+, buy ebooks like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and communicate with friends and family around the globe, Instagram and Facebook. Airbnb and Uber took the idea of a traditional social media platform like Facebook and applied it to new industries. Never again have the hospitality or transportation industry been the same. By using a platform that connects users, these companies have turned their users into both asset and customer. This is an example of one of the innovative disruptions of the 21st century. Within a few years, Uber became the world's most successful and largest taxi company, despite owning no vehicles. And Airbnb was able to expand their operations throughout the globe without purchasing any hotel buildings. These companies translated entrepreneurial skills such as creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, business development, and marketing effectively into action. They were able to meet consumer needs in a more meaningful way by making the process easier, more accessible, and less expensive. Airbnb and Uber are corporate examples of innovation in action, the epitome of a revolution in how we hail rides and reserve weekend stays. However, innovation can also start small. While ambition is necessary to grow a company, there are other examples of business startups leveraging entrepreneurial skills to innovate at a local level. Some may not recall, but Starbucks began as a local coffee shop in Seattle, Washington in 1971. It would be over 10 years before Starbucks began its aggressive expansion. So what did Starbucks do in the 10 years prior to differentiate itself from the competition and create a meaningful point of difference for its product? Well, Starbucks emulated the culture and style of Italian espresso bars in Milan, Italy, something no other coffee shop in the area had previously done. By doing this, they created a unique coffee house atmosphere. Additionally, they purchased high-quality coffee beans and Italian espresso machines. They were able to challenge the coffee market by bringing in new ideas and differentiate themselves from the competition by offering an entirely new atmosphere for coffee drinkers, previously not known on this side of the globe. This is a perfect example of communication, data analysis, and creativity in action. But the company did not stop there. Over the next 40 years, the company would continue to innovate and improve on its products. This commitment to adaptability and improvement are at the bedrock of the culture at Starbucks, and one of the major reasons it has remained so successful. Regardless of whether our students are starting their own restaurant, social media platform, or plumbing company, the need to innovate and the need to use entrepreneurial skills will be at the bedrock for those future successes. Starbucks continues to educate its employees with extensive professional development on entrepreneurship and innovation skills. Now let's dive into human capital investment. We may not really think about this every day, but education and the economy are very tightly connected. Education serves as a means to prepare the labor force of tomorrow for the economy. Now, while regularly defined by companies as their employees' skill sets and abilities, human capital extends far beyond that. In education, we are responsible for the human capital development of this country's citizens and inhabitants. Through primary, secondary, vocational, and higher education programs, we teach our students the skills they need to become happy, productive, tax-paying citizens. This is a form of investment using tax funding. At a macro scale, though it may not come as a common thought in our classroom, educators play a critical role in the development and growth of the economy of our country. If we do not prepare our students adequately to meet the demands of the global economy, our own country may suffer from a lack of worker productivity, or worse, a lack of innovation. Now, we may ask ourselves, how does this apply to our local community? And how does this affect my students at a microeconomic level? Here's a simplified answer. To produce jobs in our country, we need businesses. Businesses can either be started by local community members or opened by franchises and national or global corporations. When our students graduate with a skill set to open businesses in their communities, they have the potential to make a significant investment in the future of their own community and its citizens. A small ice cream shop could employ 5 or 6 employees who pay taxes to support essential government services and education, pay rent, and use the money to purchase more goods and services. When we think of major impacts on the economy of our large nation, we often overlook the impact of local businesses. Let's take a look at the chart I have on the screen. When you spend $100 at a local business, 68 stays in your community to support other smaller businesses and the citizens of the community. When you spend $100 at a global or a national chain, only $43 stays in your community. When consumers patronize local small businesses, they're essentially giving money back to their local community. A thriving local business will generate high levels of revenue, which means that that business will pay higher taxes, including local property taxes. This money is then used for local police and fire departments, as well as schools. A thriving small business can also improve property values throughout the community, improving every homeowner's bottom line, while generating more property taxes for local governments. The small business impact on the local economy growth also takes the form of sales tax collection. Local businesses charge sales tax based on their location and can be the backbone of special taxation districts focused on unique projects such as lighting, sidewalk improvement, and historic shopping districts, which attract additional foot traffic. This is especially important in Miami, where a large component of our economy relies on hospitality and tourism. And herein lies the critical importance of encouraging entrepreneurship. Equipping students with the skill sets to lead and launch businesses is at the heart of growing our local economies. As we have explored, entrepreneurship and innovation are skill sets which are beneficial to students who want to take on leadership roles or improve the processes, products, and services at existing companies. The need for investment in these skills has never been greater. As the economy continues to embrace platforms and data, it will become increasingly critical for our students to leverage these skills to succeed. The need for these skills does not end with students who want to start their own businesses or take the path to higher education. Recently, the increased demand for career and technical or vocational education has increased. This shift away from traditional higher education emphasizes the need for these critical skills on an alternative career path. To be effective in preparing our students for a changing society and workplace, vocational education must extend beyond the delivery of occupational knowledge and job skills. It must offer students incentive for thinking creatively about an industry and broaden their understanding of career opportunities afforded in that industry. For many years, entrepreneurial skills have been at the bedrock for career readiness in vocational education. Integrating these essential skills into our adult general education classrooms is critical in order to adequately prepare students to enter both career and technical education and higher education programs. This need has been well recognized for over 25 years. In 1989, CTE advocate and researcher Ashmore wrote on the need for entrepreneurial skills in the Vocational Education Journal. Entrepreneurship education offers students such opportunity by helping them anticipate and respond to change. Students learn that although a job may be successfully accomplished today by performing a given set of tasks, tomorrow an entirely different set of tasks and skills may be required. And because businesses are always changing, workers need to find new ways to do given jobs or new ways to do a given job better. This could not be more relevant in the information age. Although the specific skills have shifted and the use of new technology and data are at the core of our new entrepreneurial mindset, the need for basic entrepreneurial skills such as adaptability, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving has increased in demand as the economy has shifted towards the new 3.0 business model. Now more than ever, the need to integrate these entrepreneurial skills into adult and career technical education will be critical for the human capital development of the future labor force. So we've introduced entrepreneurship and innovation, and now we understand its importance to our economy and in our classrooms, and for our students to be able to find employment. As a teacher, how do we implement all of this into our classrooms? Well, I'd like to take a moment to remind you all that this is part one of the workshop. And in part two of the workshop, I will be covering in depth the application guide. So implementing business education in your adult classroom will enable your students to benefit not only from learning critical entrepreneurial skills, but also from innovating and collaborating with other students while taking advantage of interdisciplinary learning to increase their adult general education skills. Implementing activities such as the creation of a mock company or launching a social media campaign for a fictional company are excellent ways to engage your students in creative and collaborative ways. The second part of this webinar is the application guide, where I will offer you all several templates for different classroom activities which enable students to actively participate and actively practice these skills in a real-world business setting. So for now, let's take a look at some sample activities which promote the use and growth of these skills through a real-world application. So writing a business plan can be a really fun way to engage your students in their entrepreneurial skills. This is also a really fantastic way to get your students interested in starting their own companies. What I usually recommend is grouping your students into small groups of 4 or 5 with the goal of having them collaborate to create a company to compete with an existing Fortune 500 company. Think about some of the companies in the presentation today. Think about challenging Uber or challenging Airbnb. Have them take a significant challenge, something difficult, a company that is at the top of its game. And this will really help them to practice using their critical thinking, their research and data analysis skills. It'll also allow them to use language, oral and written communication skills. As they collaborate in their AGE classrooms, they can create their own business plans and write them together. They can use graphs and data analysis to propose new strategies for attacking these industry titans. Also, it's really fun to have them present in front of the whole class and present to other teachers. As a fun assessment, you could consider a Shark Tank assessment in a way in which other teachers and other students from other classrooms can sit on a panel and judge the different companies that are being come up with and the different strategies. And this is really a fun way for students to kind of experiment with these entrepreneurial skills and kind of tackle the big problems that companies are having today in imaginative ways. And it's also a really fun way to get students involved in the assessment because it gets them to use their critical thinking skills and their problem solving skills. As I discussed a little earlier, one of the greatest demands from industry partners right now is the need for good communication skills, critical thinking, and problem solving. In my experience with advisory committees and my discussions with CEOs and local hiring managers, the conversation always comes up where we discuss the skills that maybe our students are missing. And the very common recommendation from these industry leaders is that they want students or they want new employees that are more able to use critical thinking skills, that are able to solve problems without guidance, that are able to use effectively oral and written communication. As you graduate, or as students graduate from technical and vocational programs, they possess a high degree of technical finesse, but they may be missing on some of these really important soft skills, which are important not only to collaborate with other team members in the business, but also to collaborate with your leadership and to move the business forward. Another template, another sample activity I want to share with you all today is the creation of a digital marketing strategy using social media. Now, this is a really, really fun way to get your students to practice their marketing abilities and to teach them how to create social media marketing campaigns. As the entire world moves towards marketing via social media, this skill is becoming more and more important. Every major company markets via Facebook and Instagram, and in many cases, they spend millions and billions of dollars on these marketing activities. In order to create a digital marketing strategy using social media, you might have them create a social media account for a fictitious company. And it could be fun for them to target a specific demographic or customer. This allows them to use digital literacy, marketing, problem solving, written communication, and creativity. It gives them a chance to experiment with creative outlet, right? By allowing them to create their own digital marketing strategy, you're allowing them to play with two major critical skills. You're allowing them to engage their problem solving skills and also their creativity. The assessment could be through the use of a private Instagram account, have other students follow the fictitious company's Instagram. Use the number of likes to gauge the success of the social media campaign. So what you can do in the classroom, and we tried this once, it was a lot of fun, have the students create their own fictitious Instagram accounts for these companies and have them follow each other based on their interest in these fictitious companies. Have them design color schemes and different marketing strategies in order to engage the different markets and the different models. And in doing this, they're not only collaborating with one another and learning from one another, but they're honing these marketing skills and they're learning about the markets in which they're challenging. So have them follow, for example, if they're going to be doing big tech, they can follow Microsoft, they can follow Amazon and Google and see how it is that these companies market their different products and services in their different sectors. And this is a really fun way for them to not only learn a lot about the business world, but also to begin practicing those essential marketing skills. Digital marketing is also very important for our students to learn in order to market themselves in the business environment. It is becoming more and more important to use social media not only to market for companies, but to sell yourself before an interview. It's not completely uncommon for new hiring managers and human resources managers to look up a person online and see what their online footprint is before they show up for a job interview. And the third sample activity I want to cover today is the creation of an organizational development plan as a chart. So the goal of this is to create a chart indicating how new classroom policies could be used to motivate students. Have students research effective models for creating positive workplace environments. Utilize in-classroom surveys as artificial market research and have them create their plan. This is a really fun way, not only to learn a lot about your classroom and your style as a teacher, but also to engage your students in critical thinking and research skills. This helps them to hone their problem solving, organizational development, their written and oral communication, and of course, it teaches them how to analyze information. The assessment is also really enjoyable. You can experiment with different organizational models from different groups and measure their level of productivity at the end of collaborative sessions. So the way that I like to do this project is to have different groups of students establish different rules for how a study session should go or a classroom session. Have them do their research for motivation models. And this really helps them not only to work together because it requires a lot of reading and a lot of research, but it also lets them kind of experiment with managing staff and managing rules. And this is really important, not only for those that want to start their own businesses, but for those that ever want to take on the role of leadership. This is also a really fantastic way for students to discover the type of role that they seek in the workplace. So at the end of developing the plans, you can have students compare the different development plans. And in a classroom, you can implement those different days of the week and view the outcomes. So if group one has a certain organizational model with certain rules for how the students will behave in the classroom, they can apply it Monday and Tuesday. And then you can do an assessment on the materials covered in class to gauge the effectiveness of their organizational model. This is a really fun way for them to experience leadership and the impact that making rules and regulations and policy can have on something like a classroom, for example. Now, I do want to emphasize that these sample activities I will elaborate on phase 2 in part 2 of the webinar. I also have a few more in which, and these are research supported, in which we'll kind of experiment not only honing these skills in a classroom environment, but also relating them to real world problem solving. As you guys create your own activities for implementing these entrepreneurship skills in your classroom, the most critical component will probably be making sure that the activities have a real world application. And that not only makes them a lot more enjoyable for the student, but it helps the student to see the relevance in the activity. So at this point, I do want to cover some literature and resources which were critical in my research making this presentation. I did use 3 books that I recommend you check out from your local library if you are interested. They are fantastic and they will give you an in-depth background, not only on entrepreneurial skills and their importance, but also on organizational modeling and how we grow businesses today, how the business world works, and the things that are coming into demand in the new economy. The first book is Machine, Platform, and Crowd. This book is incredibly insightful. It talks about the rise of platform economics and the importance of companies like Airbnb and Uber and how they have innovated using data and using online platforms to change the entire model of how you can run a business. The second book that I always recommend to anyone that wants to teach entrepreneurship or innovation is Drive by Daniel Pink. And Drive is a really fantastic book about motivation psychology. And it is surprisingly in-depth, but it is in a very easy to read fashion. Mr. Pink does a fantastic job of of kind of breaking it down so that it's easy to understand and apply both in the classroom and in a business. And what I specifically really like about this book is that it has direct application in the classroom and has an entire section on how you can apply different motivational models in your classroom. And this book will really help support the third sample activity, which is developing your own organizational models. Drive also does a really good job of emphasizing the needs of the next generation. It talks a lot about how we can apply entrepreneurial skills to motivate millennials and Gen Z as well. And the final book is The Global Achievement Gap. And the Global Achievement Gap is actually a little older than the other two on this list. It was published in 2008. And it's a really fantastic book because it breaks down these entrepreneurial skills. Now, the need for these skills has been around for some time, but really it was Tony Wagner who kind of put it on the map for educators. He surveyed corporate America. He surveyed big human resources managers at major Fortune 500 companies, and he asked them, what are the skills that are missing in our economy today? And what are the skills that we need to build on in school, specifically in secondary and in post-secondary education? And how do we hone these skills? And he came up with a list of 7 survival skills, which are very close and in many cases overlap with the acknowledged entrepreneurial skills that are needed today. And he came up with this 10 years ago. So we really know that the demand for these skills has been around for some time. Unfortunately, the demand hasn't been met. Now, this is really wonderful for us because it gives us an opportunity to grow and to change how we do interdisciplinary activities in our classrooms. Now, before I end the presentation, I'm going to take a moment now to scan through the Q&A to see if there are any questions. I see that we have some in the chat as well.
Lots of great feedback, Alex.
Yes, I see a lot here in the chat, June. I'm looking through it. I see that a couple of you have read Drive. Yes, that's a very applicable text, especially to classroom instructors. Like I mentioned, it has an entire piece, which is how you can rebuild your organizational models in your classroom. And it is really fantastic. So here we have a question, resource for local needs for a specific municipality. So that is a great question. And what I can tell you there is, at least in our local municipality, our school district has purchased economic software, which allows us to analyze the skill sets that are in need for our local municipality. And that allows us to kind of work with industry partners. What I would say, and this is kind of difficult, I suppose, from a teacher's standpoint, but if you do reach out to your district, they can purchase economic analysis tools, which will allow them to kind of survey what the job posts in your area are requiring. And they will also let you search and kind of analyze that data by state. But definitely that's something that I would reach out to your school district. And I have another question. Who is the author of the Global Achievement Gap? The author of the Global Achievement Gap is Tony Wagner, and the book was published in 2008. And Tony Wagner is a renowned educational researcher who's written a number of fantastic papers. He was responsible for challenging the entire structure of our secondary schools, and he really pushed for interdisciplinary learning, which is the idea of combining subjects in order to increase learning and offer more real-world application. So I see those two have been answered. I have another question. How do we sell entrepreneurship to students that are not interested in starting a small business? That is a really great question. What is in it for them? So, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, entrepreneurship skills, entrepreneurial skills are not only for business leaders, and they're not only for people starting their own business. And the reason is in the nature of the mindset, which is created through these entrepreneurial skills. Somebody who has the ability to problem solve, utilize critical thinking, and communicate effectively will make just as good of a follower as they will a leader. As I discussed a little earlier, I work very closely with industry partners in career and technical education, and these hiring managers discuss consistently and have informed myself and other accreditation officers consistently that the need for these skills is not always being met. And that is something that is very important for us as teachers, because when our students graduate with a technical know-how, but they're missing these entrepreneurial skills, it requires them to be molded at the business. So the last thing that we want is for our students to graduate and go into the workforce and still have to do more training. We want to deliver ready-to-go employees that can think for themselves, that can solve problems, that are creative, and can offer solutions. It used to be that managers made all the decisions in businesses, but with the new business model, what we're seeing is a lot of collaborative effort. And obviously that's the best way to do things, because you have more brains working on more problems. And really a critical component of this is making sure not just that your managers can solve problems, but that all your employees can solve problems. I hope that answered your question. Not a question. I'm looking forward to how these sample activities will be fleshed out in the next webinar. Yes. So the next webinar, like I said, I will have a lot more time to flesh these out. The introduction to these skills can be a little dense sometimes. So I feel like it's important to flush those out first. And yes, in the next webinar, I'm really looking forward to showing you guys in detail, and I'll be giving you guys some rubrics and some activity guides for how you can implement this in your AGE classrooms, in ESOL classrooms, in ABE, and adult high school and GED classrooms. And a big component of that will be the interdisciplinary study. I have another question here. We began a hospitality program in our facility in November 2020. Can you please advise me on where to find classroom resources for hospitality? Okay, I can definitely point you in the direction of entrepreneurial skills related to hospitality. As far as that, I would suggest customer service books. I would definitely suggest looking at the textbook guide at your local university for their hospitality program guides, and definitely consult with your curriculum administrators. Now, I think I see here, let's see if we have any more questions. Okay. All right, I think at this time we've answered all the questions. I hope that everything was really clear today. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to the IPDE team. I will flush out some more information on the next presentation, and the next presentation will cover a lot less of the introduction to entrepreneurship and innovation, a lot more the application in the classroom. I see we have two more questions. Okay. Will the PowerPoint be available for later use? Yes, the PowerPoint will be posted within 48 hours. And I have another question. How do we sell entrepreneurship to parents? Most of the students are encouraged by their parents to exceed in college to work for great companies. Yes, so this is actually a really, really good question. How do we encourage entrepreneurship to parents? And I would refer back to the earlier question, which is, we're not really pushing entrepreneurship only for the purpose of starting your own business. We're pushing entrepreneurial skills because they can help you both in the creation of your own business and also to succeed in existing industries. I have a lot of experience in the aviation industry, and the school that I currently work at full time is an aviation maintenance technician school. And these students are taught how to dissect and how to troubleshoot and repair aircraft jet turbines. Some of the most complex technical programs you've ever seen in your life. And when they go to work, they still need to be able to write a good email. They still need to be able to solve problems, right? That's part of troubleshooting. And they're also going to need to be creative as well. So these skills are not only necessary to start your own business, these are also skills that are going to be needed, whether you're a manager or a regular tradesman or in corporate America. So when you're talking to parents and you're telling them, you know, the importance of entrepreneurship in the classroom, I think something that you really want to emphasize is that this is going to help them no matter what career they choose, no matter what industry they choose, because this is a set of soft skills which promotes innovative thinking. And that's really how you want to explain this to parents. And you can tell them, this is what the industry demands. You know, there's a lot of peer reviewed, supported research. And I hope that you guys have figured it out by now. Everything that I put here on my presentations is researched material. I believe in using the research because the industries are telling us exactly what they need. And our job as educators is to make sure that our students are prepared with the needs of that industry. So when you're talking to parents, explain that to them. Tell them, you know, it doesn't matter if they're going to go into corporate America. It doesn't matter if they want to go into career and technical education or even into higher education and graduate school. These skills are going to be necessary no matter where they go. Okay. I'll give a few more seconds here for any additional questions. And once again, if you do have the any questions, please put them in the Q&A, please. The importance of sound evidence. Yes, I see some of you talking about the importance of evidence. Yeah, whenever we make claims like these, whenever we're shifting our focus in education, we want to make sure that we use, you know, peer-reviewed references. That is probably some of the most important things you can do when you're making any decision, especially professionally, is, you know, use research and data to back up your claims. And the great thing about education is that so many of us love education so much that we go on to research it. So there is really a plethora of available research in entrepreneurial studies, innovation, interdisciplinary studies. Just for this presentation, I read through 6 or 7 peer-reviewed papers on the application of entrepreneurial skills to career and technical education. So there really is a lot of information out there for you all. You can access them through university libraries, through Google Scholar, and it really helps because when you make a data-driven decision, you really can back up your claims and what you're doing in your classroom. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. So I think we've answered, oh, I have one more question. In reference to a question, could we approach the possibility of reductions in employee benefits throughout industries that have traditionally provided those benefits, but are now reducing those benefits? Could having more control of one's own responsibilities for those be a selling point? That is a very complex question. So we could approach the possibility. I wouldn't really dive into that so much. It is true, unfortunately, that there has been a reduction in the type of benefits that companies offer for, you know, full-time packages. But I would really veer away from that and kind of focus on the entrepreneurial skills as being a selling point for the employee as an employee. So by meeting the skill set that the employees demand, they're making themselves a much more marketable candidate, meaning that they'll have access to the better jobs. So that's probably the best way to sell that. And I hope that answers your question as far as, you know, having access to the best jobs. So at this time, I want to thank you all for your questions. I really enjoyed today's presentation. I think that this material is incredibly important as we move forward and we change the way that we do things in our adult classrooms. I know it can seem really daunting at times, but I promise you that once you get into the research, you'll love it. You'll get excited about it. And I really think that these books, at least that I offered, are very interesting and they're very applicable in your classrooms. And it's stuff that will help your students to succeed, which I know is what all of you want. That's what I want. And without further ado, I will turn the mic over to June.
Alex.
For closing remarks.
Alex, thank you so much. And thank you for all of you joining us today. I hope that you sign up for the next for the presentation on January 13th, which will be part 2. But keep in mind, we do have another presentation webinar for you next week on reinforcing responsive teaching. But before I let you go today, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you and would love to get your feedback on this presentation today. So you will see 3 short questions that appear on your screen. If you would just take a moment to answer those questions, we love to get your feedback and see how you enjoyed this presentation. I know that that hour went by so fast, Alex. So thank you so much for all of the research and the activities. We can't wait to see those sample activities on January 13th. It was really, really great. Okay, with that, we'll say goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for supporting IF Day.